Black boy begs lawyer to help his mom, then learns the man is actually his father. The sun had just begun to rise over Savannah, Georgia, casting golden light across the quiet streets. On the edge of a small park nestled near the courthouse, a boy no older than 6 sat alone on a wooden bench, his sneakers muddy, his hoodie too thin for the crisp morning chill. His name was Malik Carter, and today he had made up his mind. He was going to find someone to help his mom. Malik had walked nearly 5 miles from the small mobile home park on the outskirts of town, asking strangers for directions until he found the building with the brass plaque that read, Benjamin Cole Law Group. His legs ached and his stomach growled, but he refused to cry. His mom had taught him not to cry in public. She always said, "Crying don't fix nothing, baby. Keep your chin up and pray." He stared up at the tall brick building, the windows reflecting a sky full of promise. The door creaked open, and a tall man in a navy blue suit stepped out, adjusting his tie. He was clearly in a hurry, phone pressed to his ear, eyes scanning the street for his car. Malik stood and stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir," he said, voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't stop. "Sir," Malik tried again, louder this time. The man finally looked down, startled. He had the kind of presence that made people stand straighter, shoulders square, jawline tight, eyes sharp. He was in his early 30s, clean-shaven, with dark brown skin and neatly cut hair. His name was Elijah Brooks, a former federal prosecutor who had left Washington, D.C. 2 years ago and returned to his hometown to open a private practice. "What is it, kid?" he asked, pocketing his phone. Malik dug into his jacket and pulled out a banana, bruised and warm from the walk. "This is all I have, sir." "Can you help my mom? She's in jail." Elijah blinked. "Wait, what?" The boy held out the banana with both hands. "She didn't do nothing wrong, I swear. Please, you're a lawyer, right?" Elijah looked around, wondering if this was some kind of prank. But the boy's eyes, dark brown and unwavering, spoke of desperation no prank could fake. "What's your name?" Elijah asked, crouching down. "Malik." "I'm 6. Malik. Where's your dad?" "I don't have one." The answer came so quickly, so flat, that it caught Elijah off guard. "And where's your mom?" "In jail. They said she stole a bracelet from the store she worked at." "But she didn't. She told me stealing's wrong. She wouldn't do it." Elijah ran a hand down his face. "Where do you live?" "Carver Homes. Auntie Tasha's watching me, but she don't like me much. I just want my mom back." Elijah stood, his briefcase forgotten. "Have you eaten?" Malik shook his head. "All right," Elijah said. "Come with me. We'll get some breakfast and talk." They walked to a small diner across the street. As they sat in a booth, Malik devoured the eggs and toast like he hadn't eaten in days. Elijah listened as the boy spoke between bites, telling him about his mom, Kendra Carter, who worked at a jewelry store called Bellamy's. She had been arrested 2 days ago, accused of stealing a diamond bracelet worth $5,000. Malik's voice dropped to a whisper. "They said they have video of her." "But she said it's not true, that it's missing footage, that the cameras don't show the whole thing." Elijah frowned. That sounded familiar. Too familiar. He'd seen cases where stores conveniently lost parts of surveillance footage to protect higher-ups or cover for actual thieves. He looked at Malik, really looked at him this time. There was something about the boy's face, his eyes, his nose, that tugged at something buried deep inside Elijah. "Do you have a picture of your mom?" he asked gently. Malik pulled a small photo from his backpack. It was a little wrinkled but still clear. A woman in her late 20s with caramel skin, soft curls, and a warm smile. Elijah's heart stopped. He knew her. Kendra. The name, the face, it all rushed back. She was the girl he'd dated briefly back in college, right before he left for DC. They hadn't spoken since. Things ended abruptly after a misunderstanding, and he never looked back. But now, he felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. "Malik, did your mom ever mention me?" Malik squinted.
"She don't talk about men. Just said she used to know a guy named Eli, but he left."
"Said he was smart but ran away." Elijah's throat tightened. Eli. That was what Kendra had called him. Back then, when everything felt like it was just beginning. He stared out the window, his thoughts racing. Kendra had a child. Malik was 6. He did the math. It lined up. No, he couldn't jump to conclusions, but something in his gut told him this wasn't just coincidence.
"Malik," Elijah said slowly, "I want to help your mom. I really do. But I need you to tell me everything you know about what happened."
"Everything she told you, it could help." Malik nodded eagerly. "She said her boss's girlfriend was in the store that day. That she bought something expensive, and after she left, the bracelet was missing. But the cameras only show Mama holding a box, not taking anything." "Did your mom mention the boss's name?"
"Mr. Charles Bellamy."
Elijah felt the blood drain from his face. Charles Bellamy was a name he'd heard before, a man with deep pockets and deeper connections in town. He'd gotten out of several lawsuits in the past thanks to lawyers who played dirty. This wasn't just a petty theft case. This was a setup, and Kendra was the scapegoat. Elijah leaned back in the booth, his mind spinning. He didn't know what this all meant yet, whether Malik was really his son, whether Kendra had kept the truth from him for a reason. But one thing was clear. This case was personal now, and he wasn't going to walk away from it. "I'm going to help your mom, Malik," Elijah said firmly. "But I want you to promise me something." "What?" "That you'll stick close. No more walking across town alone, okay?" Malik nodded. "Okay. Good." Elijah pushed his plate aside. "Now let's go get some answers." They stepped out of the diner into the rising sun, the light painting the sidewalk gold. Elijah placed a gentle hand on Malik's shoulder. For the first time in years, he felt something shift inside, a strange, unexplainable warmth he hadn't realized he was missing. As they walked toward his car, Elijah glanced at Malik again. That boy might be his. But first, he had a promise to keep, to clear Kendra's name and find out the truth about everything. Elijah had been in 100 courtrooms, faced down state prosecutors, federal agents, and corrupt judges. But nothing had prepared him for the way his hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel as he drove Malik back to Carver Homes. Every word the boy had said at the diner echoed in his mind like a puzzle begging to be solved. Could it be true? Was Malik his son? He didn't say it out loud, not even to himself, but the possibility sat heavy on his chest like a stone. When they reached the rundown housing complex, Elijah slowed his car. Kids played barefoot on the cracked pavement, dodging potholes filled with murky rainwater. A group of women chatted loudly on a stoop, keeping one eye on the street and the other on the toddlers chasing after plastic bottles. "That's Auntie Tasha's place," Malik said, pointing to a small unit near the back. A woman with her hair wrapped in a leopard print scarf stood on the porch, arms folded, lips pursed. Elijah parked and opened the door. As soon as Malik stepped out, the woman came stomping down the stairs. "Boy, where the hell you been?" she snapped. "You think you can just disappear like that?" "I've been calling everybody." Elijah stepped between them, raising a hand. "Ma'am, I'm Elijah Brooks. I'm an attorney." "Malik found me this morning. He was asking for help for his mother." Tasha looked him up and down, lips curling in suspicion. "And who the hell are you to be taking my nephew around town like that?" Elijah stayed calm. "He approached me outside my office."
Walked miles to find help. I couldn't just ignore that. I bought him breakfast and listened to his story. Tasha turned to Malik, eyes narrowing.
You better not be talking to strangers, Malik. Your mama would whoop your little behind if she knew. Malik looked down. I just want her home. Something in Tasha's face softened.
Yeah, well, we all do. She looked back at Elijah. You really gonna help her? I plan to. Tasha nodded slowly. She didn't do it.
I don't care what they say. That girl ain't never taken so much as a pencil that didn't belong to her. It's that damn boss of hers, Charles Bellamy.
Always strutting around, acting like he owns the world. You really want to help? Dig into him. Elijah's eyes narrowed. Do you know anything specific? Only that she called me the night before she got locked up, crying about how she thought she was being set up, said the store's inventory didn't match and that the cameras had blind spots. She wanted to tell someone, just in case.
And now look at her, locked up like a damn criminal. I'd like to talk to her, Elijah said. Today. I'll keep Malik, but if you find anything, you bring her home. Elijah nodded and turned to Malik, who... You okay staying here for a bit? Malik hesitated. You promise you'll help her? I give you my word. That seemed enough. Malik nodded solemnly and disappeared inside the apartment.
The drive to the Chatham County Detention Center was quiet, but Elijah's thoughts churned with questions. He knew better than to get emotionally involved in a case. But this wasn't just another file on his desk. This was Kendra. And possibly the boy. The clerk at the jail desk glanced up. Name? Kendra Carter. I'd like to visit her. Attorney-client. ID? Elijah handed it over and waited. She's in holding, the clerk said after a moment. Take a seat. 10 minutes later, he was led into a small visitation room, plexiglass window, phone on the wall. The door across from him opened, and she stepped in. Kendra. Her curls were pulled back in a rough ponytail, and she wore the standard orange jumpsuit. But even under the harsh fluorescent lights, she looked almost the same as she had in college, still beautiful, still strong. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Elijah? He picked up the phone. I wasn't sure if you'd recognize me, he said. Kendra sat slowly, her face unreadable. What are you doing here? I met Malik this morning. Her hand froze on the receiver. Malik? He walked all the way into town. Found me outside my office. Said his mother needed help. Her eyes welled up, and she turned away for a moment. I told him to stay home. I told Tasha not to let him out of her sight. He said you were accused of theft. They said I stole a bracelet from the store, but I didn't, Eli. I swear to God. I didn't take anything. I believe you. She looked back, confused. You do? I've been following Bellamy's career from a distance. His name came up in several wrongful termination suits, hush-hush payoffs, allegations of misconduct. Never stuck. But there's a pattern. I know what I'm looking for. Kendra stared at him. Why are you really here? Elijah hesitated. Because I need to know the truth. About you. About Malik. She gripped the phone tighter. You think you can just walk in here after 6 years and demand answers? I didn't even know you had a child. Well, now you do. Kendra, Elijah said gently. Is he mine? The silence between them thickened. Her lip trembled, and she closed her eyes. Yes. Elijah sat back, the word echoing in his head like a thunderclap. He hadn't even realized he was holding his breath until he let it out in a slow, trembling exhale. Why didn't you tell me? You were gone. You left. You didn't come back. I called. I wrote. You never answered. I had no idea. You left for DC, Elijah, and I was pregnant. I tried to reach you for months.
But after a while, I stopped trying. I had to focus on Malik. I had to survive. I didn't ignore you, he said, voice low.
I was in a car accident. 2 months after I moved, I lost part of my memory.
3 years, just gone. I didn't remember anything until I saw him. Kendra blinked, stunned. Are you serious? I wouldn't lie about this. For a long moment, neither spoke.
Finally, Kendra said, "So what now? You gonna try and take him from me?"
No,
Elijah said firmly. "That's not why I'm here."
I just want to help. I want to fix this for you. For Malik. Kendra's shoulders sagged. Then get me out of here, Eli. Please. I will, he promised. As he left the visitation room, Elijah felt like a man walking out of a dream. He had come to Georgia to start fresh, to get away from the politics of D.C. He never imagined he'd stumble into the pieces of a life he'd lost, and a child he never knew existed. But now that he had, there was no turning back. He was going to fight like hell. Not just as a lawyer, but as a father. Elijah sat alone in his office late into the night, the blinds half closed, casting long shadows across the room. The air was heavy with humidity from the Georgia summer, and the overhead fan did little to ease the weight on his chest.
A dozen folders lay sprawled across his desk, but only one held his attention: State versus Kendra Carter. Every page, every line, he read like it was a secret code waiting to be cracked. The arrest warrant, the store's complaint, the vague language about missing merchandise, it all reeked of convenience. And now, knowing what he knew, it wasn't just another case. This was personal. Kendra hadn't lied. The surveillance footage, time-stamped 9:42 a.m., showed a distorted image of the display counter. But there was a blind spot, right where the most expensive items were kept, and Charles Bellamy, the store manager, had signed off on the footage review himself. That alone was suspect. Elijah picked up his phone and called Candace, one of his most trusted paralegals.
Hey,
She answered groggily.
you do know it's past midnight, right?
I need you to pull everything you can on Charles Bellamy.
Prior employment, lawsuits, complaints. Dig deep. There was a pause. This about the Carter case? Yes, and it just became priority 1. Got it. I'll start on it first thing in the morning. No, tonight, Elijah said firmly. Candace sighed.
You know I hate you sometimes, right? I'll owe you. Big time.
He hung up and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. His thoughts wandered to Malik, how the kid's eyes lit up with every mention of his mother. How his small voice cracked when he said he just wanted her home. Elijah felt something tighten in his chest. Guilt. Responsibility. A strange kind of pride, but mostly he felt the weight of missed years. The next morning, Elijah pulled into the lot outside Crystal Haven Jewelry, where Kendra had worked. The boutique sat in a row of storefronts, upscale but quiet. He stepped inside, immediately greeted by the sterile smell of glass cleaner and artificial vanilla. A young woman behind the counter blinked in surprise when she saw him.
Good morning, sir. Can I help you?
I'm here to speak with Mr.
Bellamy. Is he in?
One moment. She disappeared into a back room. Moments later, a tall, heavy-set man in a dark blue blazer emerged.
Charles Bellamy.
He looked polished, but something about his gait and cold smile set Elijah on edge. You looking for something in particular? Bellamy asked. Elijah offered his hand. Elijah Brooks. I'm representing Kendra Carter. The man didn't take his hand. Well, that's awkward, Bellamy muttered. She already got herself a lawyer. Thought she'd be using public defense.
She's not, Elijah said evenly.
and I'm here to review the footage and interview any staff who may have seen what happened that day. Bellamy scoffed. You attorneys think you can waltz in here and dig up dirt. I gave the footage to the police already. And none of the girls saw anything. That woman stole from me. End of story. You're denying me access. I'm telling you, you're wasting your time. She was the only one working the morning shift. Inventory went missing. She had the only key to that case. Elijah didn't flinch. She also called her sister the night before and told her she was worried about being framed. Said she noticed blind spots in the camera layout. Funny how the camera right above the main display was suddenly malfunctioning that day. Bellamy's jaw clenched. See, Elijah continued, that's the thing about people who lie. They leave crumbs, and I'm really good at finding crumbs. Bellamy leaned in. You want to play tough guy, lawyer? Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Elijah gave him a tight smile. Oh, I've been warned, but I don't scare easy. He turned to leave, but not before noticing a security tag on a display bracelet, one identical to the piece Kendra had supposedly stolen. Funny how it had magically reappeared. Outside, Elijah dialed Candace again. I need the blueprints of that store's security layout. If Bellamy's hiding something, I want to know how he did it. Already on it. Also, guess what? Our guy's got baggage. I'm listening. 3 civil complaints over the last 5 years, all settled quietly. 1 for workplace harassment, 1 for wrongful termination, and 1 for racial discrimination. Elijah's blood simmered. Let's make sure the DA gets a copy. And Candace, find out if any employees were fired recently. Anyone who might want to talk. Later that afternoon, Elijah paid a visit to a former employee named Camila Ortega. She had been let go 2 months before Kendra's arrest. Why do you care now? She asked bitterly when he met her at a local cafe. No one believed me back then. I believe you, Elijah said. Camilla's eyes filled with tears. He's a predator, not just sexually. He bullies people into silence. He keeps 2 sets of books for inventory. If anything goes missing, he blames the staff. But he's the one who moves the jewelry, sells it off the books. He did it to me. I tried to speak up. He fired me the next day. Elijah's heart pounded. Would you testify? Camilla hesitated. Only if I know I'll be protected. I'll make sure of it. By the end of the day, Elijah had what he needed. A clear motive, a pattern of misconduct, and a credible witness. He drove straight to the courthouse and filed a motion to have Kendra released on bond, attaching Camilla's sworn affidavit and a formal complaint against Bellamy. The court date was set for the following morning, but before he went home, Elijah made one last stop. Malik. The boy was sitting on the stoop outside Tasha's place, a plastic toy in his hand. Elijah crouched beside him. Hey, champ. Did you talk to my mom? I did, and I've got good news. We're getting her out. Tomorrow. Malik's eyes widened. For real? For real. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded drawing. Stick figures holding hands under a sun. A woman, a boy, and a man in a tie. That's us, Malik whispered. I drew it. Just in case. Elijah's breath caught in his throat. It's perfect. Malik smiled. I knew you'd help her. Elijah ruffled the boy's hair. He didn't say what he was really thinking, what he'd been thinking since the moment Kendra had whispered the truth. You're my son. But that would come later. First, he had to bring Malik's mother home. Then they'd figure out what came next. The courthouse lobby was already buzzing when Elijah arrived. Cameras from 2 local news stations were parked outside. The allegations in the motion he'd filed last night had caught fire faster than he'd anticipated. A jewelry store manager with a history of complaints tied to yet another false accusation, this time against a single black mother,
was the kind of story that made headlines. But Elijah wasn't here for headlines. He was here for justice. Inside the courtroom, Malik sat beside Tasha, fidgeting with the sleeves of his too-big hoodie. His legs barely reached the ground, and he kept turning his head toward the entrance. Tasha gave him a gentle nudge. "He's coming," she whispered. "Don't worry, baby." Malik gave a tiny nod, but his lips were pressed tight. Elijah stepped in, papers tucked neatly under one arm, and made eye contact with Malik. He offered a subtle smile and a wink. The boy lit up like a spark. Judge Reynolds, a woman in her mid-60s with a sharp bob and no patience for dramatics, presided over the case. She glanced over the bench at Elijah as he approached the counsel table. "This is an emergency bail hearing, Mr. Brooks," she said. "I hope you brought more than emotion and opinion." "I brought facts, Your Honor," Elijah said, placing his documents on the table, "including new testimony from a credible witness detailing a pattern of misconduct by the store manager, Mr. Charles Bellamy." Reynolds adjusted her glasses and began skimming the documents. Her eyebrows arched slightly. "You're telling me the supposed victim in this case has been manipulating inventory, firing staff under false pretenses, and potentially selling merchandise off the books?" "Yes, Your Honor. And I've attached affidavits and independent records confirming 3 prior complaints that were quietly settled, all involving minority employees." The DA, a middle-aged man named Sanders with a pinched expression, cleared his throat. "Your Honor, we believe these allegations are a distraction. The state maintains there's sufficient evidence to proceed. The defendant was the only one present when the jewelry went missing." "That hasn't changed." "Except it has," Elijah said calmly, stepping forward. "We now know there's a surveillance blind spot. We also know Bellamy's alleged mistress, whom he refused to disclose to police, was in the store that morning. My firm has acquired nearby security footage placing her at the scene during the window when the jewelry disappeared." He placed a printed still frame on the bench. It showed Mary DuPont, easily identified, walking into the store at 9:46 a.m. The courtroom fell silent. Even the DA looked shaken. Judge Reynolds took her time. She flipped through the last few pages, then closed the folder. "I'll approve conditional bail," she finally said. "Ms. Carter is to be released within the hour." Elijah let out a long breath. He heard Malik gasp quietly behind him. "However," the judge continued, "given the serious nature of the misconduct alleged, I'm ordering an expedited internal review and requesting the district attorney's office re-examine the basis of this arrest. Mr. Bellamy may find himself on the other side of this courtroom very soon." As the gavel struck, Malik leapt from his seat. He ran toward Elijah just as the attorney turned from the bench. Without hesitation, Malik threw his arms around Elijah's waist. "Thank you," the boy whispered. Elijah froze for a beat, then slowly placed a hand on Malik's back. "We're not done yet." "But this is a good step." An hour later, outside the county detention center, Elijah stood with Tasha and Malik as the release paperwork was finalized. Then the door buzzed and swung open. Kendra Carter stepped out, still in the wrinkled blouse she'd been arrested in, her eyes bloodshot but alert. When she saw Malik, she burst into tears. "Mom!" Malik shouted, sprinting forward. They collided in a fierce hug, Kendra dropping to her knees, clutching him tight. "I'm here," she choked out. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm here now." Elijah stood a few feet back, watching. A flood of emotion gripped him. Joy, relief, and something heavier, something deeper. Kendra's eyes eventually found his. She rose slowly, holding Malik by the hand. Her expression was guarded. "Thank you," she said, not quite meeting his gaze. Elijah nodded. "We're not done. Bellamy's going to face real consequences for this, I promise." "I believe you," she said quietly, then hesitated. "Why are you doing this?"
There was a long pause. Elijah looked at Malik. The boy was looking up at him, wide-eyed and hopeful. Kendra followed his gaze.
Elijah,
She started, then stopped herself.
not here. Not now.
He seemed to understand. Let me give you two a ride home, please, they agreed. In the car, Malik talked non-stop. About school, about his drawings, about how he'd saved his lunch money to buy a new coloring book. Elijah listened to every word, responding with gentle questions. Kendra, in the passenger seat, stayed mostly silent. But every so often, she'd glance sideways, studying Elijah's profile like she was trying to remember something from long ago. When they pulled up to the duplex she rented with Tasha, Kendra turned to him before getting out. I'll let him know. Later. Elijah nodded. I'm not going anywhere. That night, Elijah sat alone again in his apartment, the city lights outside casting long shadows across his living room floor. On the coffee table sat an old photo frame, empty. He stared at it for a long time. He didn't know how this would end, but something inside him had shifted. He wasn't just fighting for a client, he was fighting for his son. The morning after Kendra's release, the city felt strangely quiet to Elijah. The usual noise from downtown didn't register. He sat at his desk staring at an email that he couldn't bring himself to open. It was from a law firm in New York offering him a senior partner position, something he'd worked for years to achieve. But after everything that happened with Malik and Kendra, it no longer felt like the right path. The offer, once a dream, now felt like an escape from something he was finally ready to face. He closed the laptop and stood, rubbing the back of his neck as memories of that night with Kendra years ago started to creep back in. It had been a summer fundraiser for a local youth literacy initiative. He had just passed the bar, and she had been working as a community liaison. Their connection had been instant, effortless laughter, quiet talks under dim string lights, and a weekend that neither of them expected to mean so much. But he'd been offered a fellowship abroad a few weeks later. He left without ever knowing she was pregnant. Now, fate had spun them back together, and it felt too purposeful to be coincidence. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Kendra. Can we talk today? Alone. He didn't hesitate. An hour later, Elijah found himself on the porch of Kendra's modest home, heart hammering. She stepped out, dressed simply in jeans and a light grey sweater, arms folded against the cool morning breeze. Come in, she said softly. Inside, the living room was quiet. Malik had already left for school. The air was thick with tension. Elijah sat on the edge of the couch while Kendra took the armchair across from him.
I owe you more than a thank you, she began, voice barely above a whisper. I've been holding something back, and it's not fair to you, or Malik.
Elijah didn't speak. He waited.
You were never supposed to come back, she said. Or maybe I told myself that so I wouldn't have to explain.
Kendra, he said gently, I need to know. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly.
When you left, I didn't even know I was pregnant. I found out 3 weeks later. I tried to call, but your number didn't work anymore.
I emailed, I sent letters to your old apartment. I even called the firm you were interning at in Paris. His stomach turned. They never told me. I figured, she said.
After months of silence, I gave up. I stopped hoping. I focused on getting my degree, then working. Raising Malik. Elijah leaned forward, voice low. He's my son. Yes, she said simply. And you didn't tell him? She shook her head. He knows nothing about his father. I told him he was away, then I just stopped saying anything at all.
I didn't want to make him feel abandoned.
Pain flickered across Elijah's face. I never would have left you.
Not if I knew.
I know, she said, and for the first time, her eyes truly met his. They sat in silence, the air between them heavy with all the words they hadn't said for nearly a decade. Finally, Elijah broke it.
I want to be in his life.
I want to do this the right way. Kendra studied him. I believe you. But it can't just be about you feeling guilty or trying to make up for lost time. This isn't a chapter you can close in a week. I'm not here for a chapter, Elijah said. I want the whole story. I want to be his father. Kendra looked away, blinking fast.
Then you need to know something else. He tensed. She stood, walked to a small cabinet, and returned holding a manila envelope. She handed it to him without a word.
Elijah opened it and pulled out a stack of documents. At the top was a police report, then another. Then internal memos from the jewelry store. As he flipped through them, pieces started to form. False theft accusations against other employees. All dismissed quietly. Bellamy's signature was on every one.
I started collecting these a year ago, Kendra said.
I was going to file a report. I had help from a friend who works at a legal aid center. But when I confronted Bellamy with the evidence, he threatened to plant something on me. Said he'd make sure I lost my job, my son, everything. Elijah clenched his fists.
So when those earrings went missing,
she continued, I knew exactly what was happening. I just didn't have proof he actually did it that time. Until now, Elijah said, eyes blazing. He stood abruptly and paced. This isn't just about you anymore. If he's done this before, and you have records. I can take this to the DA, maybe even the state bar if anyone on the legal end helped cover it up. Kendra nodded. I didn't know who to trust. And I couldn't risk them taking Malik. You shouldn't have had to choose, he said fiercely. The room was quiet again. Can I tell him? Elijah asked after a beat. Kendra's breath caught. That you're his father? He nodded. She hesitated. Let me talk to him first. Please, he's still just a kid. Let me prepare him. He agreed, though it wasn't easy. Every minute that passed felt like another second stolen from a bond he could have had for years. That afternoon, Elijah walked out of her house more determined than ever. With the folder of documents tucked under his arm, he drove straight to the DA's office. The receptionist, sensing his urgency, waved him through. Sanders, the prosecutor from the hearing, looked up from his desk as Elijah walked in. You again, he muttered. Elijah dropped the folder on the desk. Read it, he said, and then decide if you're going to be part of fixing this mess or part of burying it. The prosecutor slowly opened the file. As his eyes scanned the first few pages, his face changed. I'll get the internal investigations team, he said. Elijah left without another word. Back in his car, he closed his eyes and exhaled. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about rewriting a story he should have been a part of all along. And now, he was ready to fight for every page. Rain drizzled gently over Atlanta as Kendra stood in her kitchen, pacing back and forth, clutching her phone in one hand. The weight of what she had just told Malik the night before still lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. She had done it. She'd finally told him the truth, that the man he had asked for help, the lawyer who stepped in when no one else would, wasn't just a stranger. He was his father. The moment had been fragile. Malik had sat on the couch with his small hands clenched, his eyes wide and wet, blinking fast. He hadn't spoken for a full minute. Kendra had watched him closely, her heart threatening to cave in as she waited for a reaction. So, he's my dad? He'd asked in a soft, disbelieving tone. Yes, baby, she'd whispered. He didn't know. He just found out too. But he helped you. He believed me.
And he brought us food. He took me to school. He's a good man, she said, and he wants to be in your life.
Malik hadn't said anything after that. He'd just stared at the floor and quietly nodded. Now, hours later, Elijah was pulling into the driveway. Kendra wiped her palms on her jeans and opened the door before he could knock. "He's in the back," she said. "He's been quiet all morning." Elijah stepped in cautiously, his eyes scanning the modest home. He noticed a soccer ball in the corner, a stack of comic books on the table, and a framed school picture of Malik on the wall. It was his nose, his brow line. How had he never seen it before? Kendra led him to the back porch, where Malik sat on a wicker bench under the awning, watching the rain fall. Elijah approached slowly. "Hey, champ." Malik turned, his face unreadable. "Hi." Elijah hesitated, then sat beside him, not too close. "Your mom told you?" Malik nodded but didn't speak. "I didn't know, Malik. Not until recently."
"I'm sorry I wasn't there."
Silence stretched between them like a thread threatening to snap. "Did you ever think about me?" Malik finally asked. Elijah's breath caught.
"Every night for the last week. And I guess in some strange way, before that too. I didn't know why, but I always felt like something was missing."
"You said you'd help my mom even before you knew." "I would have helped her even if I never found out." "She didn't deserve what happened." "Do you want to be my dad now?" Malik asked, not looking up. Elijah's throat tightened. "Only if you'll let me." "I know I can't change the past, but I'd like to be there for the future. If you'll let me show you." Another long pause. "I've never had a dad," Malik whispered.
"But I always wondered what it'd be like."
Elijah turned to him fully now, carefully. "Then how about we figure it out together, you and me?" For the first time, Malik looked up and met his eyes. "Okay," he said quietly. And that was enough. Inside, Kendra watched them through the window, her eyes welling up. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in years, she felt hope carving space in her chest. Later that week, the case against her boss, Henry Bellamy, cracked open like a dam under pressure. After Elijah handed the DA's office the documents Kendra had collected, the response was swift. 2 other former employees came forward with similar stories. Both had been silenced with threats. Both had been women of color. One had even attempted suicide after being fired for false accusations. The internal investigation began immediately, but Bellamy wasn't going down without a fight. He held a press conference, denying all allegations, claiming Elijah and Kendra were conspiring to defame him for money. He accused the DA of targeting him for political gain. He even tried to file a defamation suit against Elijah personally. Elijah, unshaken, responded the next morning with a live interview. "We're not here for revenge," he said calmly on air. "We're here for justice. Because no one should be able to abuse their position and destroy lives without consequences." Public sentiment shifted almost instantly. Social media caught fire. Videos of Kendra speaking quietly but firmly about what happened went viral. Commenters applauded her bravery. Advocacy groups began organizing support for her and for legislative changes to protect retail employees from wrongful termination and false accusations. But the biggest blow came when security footage surfaced from a pawn shop 3 blocks away. It showed Bellamy's assistant, Rebecca Vaughn, entering the store with the missing jewelry just hours after Kendra was arrested. When confronted, Rebecca confessed everything, including Bellamy's role in orchestrating the entire scheme. He was arrested the next morning. The news broke while Elijah and Kendra were meeting at the law office. Malik was coloring in the corner, headphones in, oblivious. "They got him," Elijah said, phone still in hand. "Charged with conspiracy. tampering with evidence, perjury. And that's just the beginning. Kendra sank into the chair, her hand over her mouth.
I never thought this day would come.
He's not walking away from this, Elijah assured her. You're going to be free, for real this time. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent but relentless. Elijah leaned forward, his voice thick. I know you didn't ask for any of this, but Kendra, you're the strongest woman I've ever met. She looked up at him, her expression softening. You too, she said. Even with everything, you chose to stay, to fight. They held each other's gaze for a long beat, and for once, nothing needed to be said. After the charges became public, Elijah's law firm offered to cover all of Kendra's legal expenses. Donations flooded in from people across the country who had followed her story online. She was offered her old job back by a new owner, but she declined. I'm ready for something new, she told Elijah one afternoon as they watched Malik practice at the park. Something that's mine. You'll build it, he said, whatever it is. I'll help. She looked at him with a small smile. I know you will. Just then, Malik waved from the field, gesturing wildly for them to watch as he lined up to take a shot. Kendra chuckled and nudged Elijah's arm. That one's yours, all right. Elijah grinned. Yeah, but the best parts of him, that's all you. The ball hit the back of the net, and Malik threw his arms in the air. His parents stood side by side, cheering, and for the first time in a long while, the future felt wide open. The afternoon sun blazed down over the Fulton County Courthouse, but inside the courtroom, the tension was icy and thick. Kendra sat at the witness stand, her fingers tightly gripping the edges of her seat. Just a few feet away, Henry Bellamy sat beside his defense attorney, his face stiff with manufactured calm. But Elijah could see through it. He was rattled. And he should be. Kendra took a steady breath. Her voice didn't waver as she recalled everything. The false accusation, the humiliation of being handcuffed in front of her son, the countless nights worrying about rent. Her son's question, "Are you coming home soon?" The weight of it had never left her, but today she turned pain into power. Elijah watched her from the counsel's table, proud and composed. He had prepped her endlessly for this testimony, but nothing could have prepared him for how brave she looked up there. Her chin high, her truth unwavering. When the defense attorney tried to twist her words, suggesting she had an incentive to lie for attention, Kendra responded calmly, "If I wanted attention, I would have gone viral years ago. I just want justice. And to be able to tuck my son in at night without wondering what lies might steal me from him again." The courtroom murmured. Even the judge gave a subtle nod before banging the gavel. Elijah stood when it was his turn. The defense hadn't expected him to testify, but he had insisted. It was time for the truth, the whole truth. "I didn't just take this case because I believed in Kendra Fletcher," he began, turning slightly toward the jury. "I took it because this system failed her. And I wasn't about to let it fail her again." He walked slowly across the courtroom. "I've been a defense attorney for 10 years. I've seen guilty men walk and innocent people beg for a second chance they never get. Kendra never begged. She came to court with her head high. She never once asked for pity. What she asked for was accountability." He turned to the jury, locking eyes. "And here's something else the court should know. Kendra Fletcher is the mother of my child. I didn't know that when I first agreed to help her, but when I found out, I didn't walk away, because justice isn't something you give only when it's easy. You give it when it's right." Gasps rippled through the room. Bellamy's attorney objected, but the judge waved it off. Elijah was nearly done. "I don't care what it costs me personally. What matters is that this woman was betrayed by a man who used his power to cover up his lies and destroy someone else's life just to protect his own. That's not justice." That's cowardice. And today, you get to correct that. As he returned to his seat, Kendra glanced at him, tears in her eyes. She mouthed the words, "Thank you," and Elijah gave her a small, firm nod. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When the foreperson finally returned and handed the note to the bailiff, the air went completely still. Kendra squeezed her hands, heart pounding. Elijah stared forward, emotion buried behind his calm facade. The judge opened the slip and read aloud, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Henry Bellamy, guilty on all counts." It was as if someone had removed a heavy weight from Kendra's chest. Her hands flew to her mouth. She didn't cry. Not immediately. She just closed her eyes and breathed for the first time in months. Henry Bellamy slumped back in his chair, his facade of control cracking. His lawyer sat frozen beside him, defeated. Elijah stood slowly. He turned toward Kendra, and this time there was no need for words. Everything they'd fought for had culminated in this moment. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashed. Microphones extended, but Elijah stood protectively by Kendra's side, one hand gently on her shoulder. "Kendra, how do you feel about the verdict?" "I feel relieved," she said calmly. "Not just for me, but for every woman who was too scared to speak up. I hope this sends a message." "Mr. Gaines, is it true you're the father of Ms.
"Fletcher's child!" another reporter shouted. Elijah didn't flinch. "Yes."
I am, and it's the greatest honor of my life.
That night, after the whirlwind of media died down, they sat together on Kendra's front steps. Malik was asleep inside, a soft hum from his cartoon nightlight spilling under his door.
You didn't have to say that in court,
Kendra said softly, looking at Elijah beside her. "I did," he replied. "It was the truth."
And I was tired of hiding it. She looked at him, eyes shimmering. It meant a lot. He glanced away for a moment, then back at her. "I don't just want to be in Malik's life. I want to be in yours, whatever that means, even if it's just friendship." "Even if it's slow, I'm not walking away." She swallowed hard. "I don't know what this is, Elijah. I'm still healing. But I know this, what you've done. For me, for Malik, it's more than I ever expected." "That's because you never got what you deserved," he whispered. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars appear one by one. The air between them was heavy with unsaid things, but also a calm peace neither had known in years. When Elijah finally rose to leave, Kendra stood with him. Just before he walked off the porch, she touched his hand lightly. "Elijah?" He turned. "Thank you," she said. He smiled.
"Always." And with that, he walked into the night, leaving behind a woman who, for the first time in a long time, believed that maybe, just maybe, the world could be kind again. The courtroom victory was only the beginning. In the days that followed the verdict, Elijah's life changed in ways he never expected.
The media frenzy surrounding the case didn't die down as quickly as he had hoped. There were interviews, speaking invitations, and even job offers from larger firms in Atlanta and DC, but none of that mattered to him, not compared to what he had rediscovered. One morning, just a week after the trial, Elijah found himself standing on Kendra's porch again. This time, not for legal updates or damage control, but because he simply wanted to be near them. Malik answered the door, his face lighting up.
"Hey, you came," the boy beamed. Elijah crouched down and offered a warm smile.
"You think I'd miss Saturday pancakes?" Malik grinned and pulled him inside. Kendra was in the kitchen, flipping golden pancakes with that calm grace she always had. Her hair was tied back in a simple bun, and she wore a faded Atlanta Braves t-shirt.
Morning,
she said without turning, though her smile gave her away. I brought syrup, Elijah replied, holding up a small bag. Then you're officially welcome. They ate together at the small round table, laughing between bites.
It felt natural, like this had always been their rhythm. Elijah watched as Malik dribbled syrup on his plate, chattering about a science project he was starting. Kendra gently corrected his grammar mid-sentence.
Elijah chuckled at how motherly she was. After breakfast, the three of them took a walk down the tree-lined street. The air smelled like cut grass and spring rain. Malik darted ahead, his sneakers pounding the sidewalk, leaving the two adults walking side by side in thoughtful quiet. Kendra finally broke the silence.
So, what now?
Elijah glanced at her, then up at the clouds as if the answer might be floating there.
I was offered a partnership at a major Atlanta firm yesterday. Oh. Her voice was tight, like she was bracing herself. I turned it down. She stopped walking. What? He turned to face her fully.
I came back to Georgia thinking it was about rebuilding my reputation, finding the peace I'd lost. Turns out, the peace I was looking for wasn't my career.
It was you. It was Malik.
She stared at him for a long time.
Elijah, I told you, I'm not ready for anything big.
You don't have to. I know, he cut in gently, and I'm not asking for anything from you right now. I just want to be here. For him. For you. We can take it slow.
I just wanted you to know. My choice is you two. She looked down, blinking fast. You really mean that? He reached out and brushed her hand with his fingertips. Every word. That night, as the sun dipped low behind the Georgia oaks, Kendra sat on her porch, staring at the quiet street while Malik played on the lawn with a toy rocket.
Elijah sat beside her, sipping from a bottle of water. I never told you this, she said, but after I had Malik, I used to talk to him in his sleep. I'd whisper things like, "One day your daddy will come back. And he'll be a good man." Elijah turned to her slowly. I thought maybe I was just telling myself lies. But now, watching you two together, maybe I wasn't. He didn't say anything at first. He just took her hand and held it gently. No pressure, just presence. The next few weeks saw a quiet transformation. Elijah bought a house just 2 blocks from Kendra's place, not to rush anything, but to be close. He started volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club. Word of his courtroom wins spread through the legal community, and soon he was mentoring younger attorneys who wanted to fight for justice, not just win cases. But it was Malik who grounded him. Every time his son smiled, called him dad, or asked him for help with homework, it healed a wound Elijah didn't even realize was there. One evening, as Elijah tucked Malik into bed, the boy asked, "Will you stay for good now?" Elijah looked him in the eyes. "I'm not going anywhere." "I promise." Kendra watched from the hallway, arms folded, eyes shining. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The next morning, Elijah woke up to a notification. A viral video had started circulating, Kendra's courtroom testimony. Someone had clipped her line, "I don't want pity. I want accountability." It struck a chord. People across the country were sharing it, commenting, supporting, demanding more from their systems. By afternoon, she was invited to speak at a women's justice conference. Elijah helped her prepare. Malik, sitting cross-legged on the floor, clapped every time she finished a practice speech. On the night of the conference, Kendra stood in front of a crowd of hundreds, her voice calm and resolute. "I'm not here because I'm special. I'm here because I was lucky. Lucky that my son believed in me. Lucky that someone listened. But there are so many women,
So many black women whose voices never get heard, and that has to change. The crowd erupted. Backstage, Elijah pulled her into a quiet hug. She clung to him longer than she meant to. Later, when they returned home, Elijah sat with Malik as they read a bedtime story. When the boy finally drifted off, Kendra and Elijah remained at the kitchen table. She looked at him and whispered, "You saved my life." He smiled. "No. You saved mine." They leaned into each other, foreheads touching. "I'm not promising you forever," she said. "I'm not asking for that," he whispered. They stayed like that for a while, in the soft glow of the kitchen light, surrounded by the warmth of a new beginning. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If you believe in second chances, in love that overcomes the odds, and in justice that speaks truth to power, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. Until next time, this is your storyteller. Stay kind, stay brave. And always, always believe,